Good morning, I'm Angie Austin, and we're at the Intercom 2015 Oil and Gas Conference, the 20th year of the conference. And we're being joined this morning by Dr. Will Fleckenstein with the Colorado School of Mines. Dr. Fleckenstein is a professor of petroleum engineering. Good morning, Will.
Well, good morning.
All right, so how long have you been coming to the conference? It's been going for 20 years, and you're how many years in?
You know, about 15 years in. Actually, I've got about 15 bobbleheads in my office at the School of Mines.
Now, explain these bobbleheads. I wasn't familiar with the bobblehead for this particular event.
Well, you know, every year you come to this, you always get a different bobblehead. Typically, it's a roughneck. He might be on top of a different planet, or last year he was riding a barrel of oil. You know, it's always a neat little memento about the conference.
Do you keep them in your office, or do the students, kind of know what they're all about? Where do you keep them?
Oh yeah, I keep them right up on one of my shelves, and students walk in, they say, "What's this?" And I explain to them how important the money side is to the oil industry.
I love it, absolutely love it. All right, so in terms of teaching, I understand you worked in the industry and then became a professor when? How long ago?
You know, I worked in the industry from 1990 until 2000, till about 1996 or so. Drilled my first horizontal well in 1990. Came back to work my doctorate, and then I've been at the school as an adjunct professor and a department head, actually, from 2000 on. I was 2 years, I was department head at the School of Mines.
And let's be honest, I grew up in Colorado, in Boulder, and I understand, the School of Mines is one of the most prestigious, schools in the country, probably the world, for what you do. There's kind of that little, when someone goes to the School of Mines, I automatically think, wow, they're smart.
Oh, we're one of the premier research schools in the nation, and actually in the world. Anywhere you are in the world, if you think of the Colorado School of Mines and petroleum or mining, you're going to have heard of it in many places.
So you're proud to work there, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll bet you are. You guys do a lot of great work. All right, let's get into some of the questions. When Oil and Gas 360 interviewed you last year at the Oil and Gas Conference, oil was $100 a barrel, and today it's in the 40s. Now, companies have cut exploration and development budgets by half, and they put projects on hold. Working rig counts are half of what they were last year. So what do you tell your students as the hiring climate, the way it is right now? They're about to graduate into that. So what do you tell them? Well,
it's a lot more competitive. The price of oil has always been cyclical. When I graduated in 1986 was when we had another big downturn.
Right.
And so it's going to be very competitive. Students have to sell themselves, and they have to be willing to be much more flexible on where they're willing to go to work and what type of work they're going to do to get started.
So this is definitely a topic of conversation that comes up quite often in the classroom in terms of what they need to do in order to compete in this environment.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I'll bet it does. All right, you're preparing your students with very specific skills at the School of Mines and specialized knowledge of current practices in oil field operations. So what do your graduates find to be different about actual oil company work compared to what they learn in the classroom? I'm sure you have, students come back to you and report, wow, I learned this in the classroom and it really did apply, or this was different, or I didn't expect this.
Well, one of the things, and one of the reasons I come to this conference is we have such strong connections with industry. So industry hires a lot of our students as interns after their sophomore, junior year. So many of them, when they graduate, they've actually had a lot of exposure both to field operations and then in an office as far as working as an intern. And they get very good projects.
What a great opportunity, because if they perform well as an intern, they can just get hired right into that company when they graduate if the company's impressed by them.
Well, in many ways it's a long job interview, both for the company and for the student.
That's a very good point. I like that. All right, so you've been in the industry, as you mentioned, since the 80s. So how does this downturn compare to what the industry has endured before? You mentioned 1986.
Well, 1986 was a tremendous drop, but it is a little different. At that time, the Saudi Arabians were producing maybe 2.5 million barrels a day. Now they're producing, somewhat over 10 million barrels of oil a day. And this is being driven by production. Obviously, shale production is in the United States has really been somewhat of a driver. And also there is somewhat of a drop in demand.
All right, so what advice do you give your students in terms of all of that in the industry?
Well, they have to recognize the demographics. We're in the middle of what we call the big shift change, where it's students that graduated during the boom in the 70s now are starting to retire. They're getting gray hair, somewhat like I have, and they have to be replaced. And so students are going to have to realize that they have to be flexible, and they're going to have to, probably lower some of their expectations about what they thought their salary was going to be.
Interesting.
But there are jobs, I think, to be had. They just have to work for them.
Yeah, especially for the qualified go-getters that are flexible, as you said.
Yeah.
All right, so the E&Ps are doing a great job, as you know, of squeezing more oil out of each well. Whiting Petroleum, for instance, said their companies have evolved from sleeves and packers with 90 perf clusters in 2012 to slick water with 960 total entry points in 2014. So what does the industry expect from petroleum engineers that you turn out from your school?
Well, they expect them to be pretty well rounded, but at the same time have those really strong engineering skills to be able to hit the ground running. So many of our professors have industry experience, and we really try and go ahead and give the skills that they have right off the bat. We have many consortia here at the School of Mines, so they have a chance to understand what the problems are going to be that they're going to see when they graduate and actually start to try and make somebody, a company, glad they hired them.
Right, and isn't that nice when they actually are pleased they hired you?
Yeah.
All right, so what's your best guess as to where the industry will be when we talk next August, Will?
Well, I think there's a pretty good chance that demand is going to continue to respond to these lower energy prices. So I think we're going to probably see a little bit higher of an oil price, but at the same time, as the last year has taught us, it's almost anybody's bet as far as where prices can go, and you have to be ready to react to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now in terms of the conference, you mentioned networking and such. What are some of the, you've been coming for 15 years, what are some of the things that you really enjoy or get out of and benefit from the conference?
Well, you get a chance to see what the industry is doing. I remember coming many years ago, a friend of mine that I played football with, Mike Ciala, was an analyst, and he says you have to stay and watch this company called Southwestern Energy. And you got a chance to see how people are starting to take technology and go into these older fields and be able to find new oil and gas they can produce.
Interesting. Has it been fascinating for you to watch some of these advancements?
Oh, absolutely. To go ahead and see where people are now producing from rock that's almost as tight as the cement that makes up somebody's driveway.
Wow. How about over the last 15 years as you've been a professor and you've watched the industry, what has been like the most exciting thing that's been introduced, or some of the big innovations that you've found to be very exciting? Like you just mentioned one.
Well, the combination of horizontal drilling and multi-stage fracturing has been something the industry can be extremely proud of developing, because it's brought so many more hydrocarbons that the world is going to be able to use and enjoy for many, many years to come.
Well, I find it fascinating learning more about it, because some of the advancements I've been reading about in the last few days were kind of surprising to me and cool. Let's see, it's just some of it's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Fleckenstein.
Yeah, thank
All right,
you.
I'm Angie Austin with Oil and Gas 360, and we're at Intercom's 2015 Oil and Gas Conference. Thanks for joining us for our interview with Dr. Will Fleckenstein from the Colorado School of Mines.